Presidential contenders for the June 3rd election are pledging a prescription, if you will, to heal a divided South Korea, as one foreign daily put it. With more on Press Perspective today. Hello and hope your work week is off to a good start. You're watching Press Perspective for this Monday, May 12th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sun-hee. Today marks the start of the official campaign period for the June 3rd presidential election. And for more on this, on the political events that is here in the country, I have Chloe Borgnon with French broadcaster France 24 here in the studio. Chloe, welcome back.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I also have Yang Chien-Hao, a freelance journalist from Taiwan, based here in South Korea. Chien-Hao, it's been a while. Welcome back.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me here.
Chloe, we will start with you. Let's begin then with the dramatic developments, if you will, within the conservative camp this past weekend.
Yeah, so this weekend we've seen a conflict over who should be the official candidate for the campaign that's been opening today for the People Power Party, the Conservative Party. On one side, you had Kim Moon-soo, who is the ex-Labour minister who won the primary of the party to be the official candidate last week. And on the other side, you had Han Jong, who was the prime minister and ex-acting president. He also resigned, and he was first running initially as an independent candidate. So on Saturday morning, very early morning actually, the nomination of Kim Moon-soo was cancelled by the party, and they decided that they will nominate instead Han Jong as their main official candidate. So that's following actually last week. There've been talks between the two candidates to try and reconcile and make one candidacy for both of them to be able to gather all the votes from the conservative voters, because both of them would be dividing the votes. So they tried to merge into one candidate, but those negotiations collapsed, and that brought to this situation. So Kim Moon-soo spoke of the decision of the party as a political coup, and he opposed it. He even went to fill the court injunction to make sure that it would be suspended. In the end, late on Saturday, the People Power Party said that the voters inside the members of the party voted to keep Kim Moon-soo as the official candidate, and yesterday he was able to register as the official candidate for the party. So just to give a few feedbacks from the main characters of this development, the party's interim leader Han Jong said that he will resign because he was not able to fill the divides. Then Han Jong, who joined the People Power Party on Saturday, said that he humbly accepts the decision by the people and the party members. And Kim Moon-soo said that he voted to move forward to build a new and greater Republic of Korea. I'm quoting him there. And he said that everything will return to its rightful place. So that's, as of today, what's been happening in the weekend.
Right. Chien-Hao, as Chloe mentioned, Sunday was the deadline for candidate registration for the June 3rd election, and Kim Moon-soo wrote his name down for the People Power Party. Does the Conservative Party's internal strife, that is, how does that look to affect its prospects for the election, do you think?
Remember, most of the people, they have been very unsatisfied and even furious to President Yoon declaring the martial law in the end of last year, which limited people attending political activities, and later be claiming that he planned to arrest many politicians. And the thing happened over last weekend have made people think that there was another insurrection inside the ruling People Power Party, because Kim Moon-soo, though he is kind of radical, I should say, revealing his attitude of cooperating with the far-right groups, and he's also one of the main figures backing President Yoon, and he won the primary election in the party, defeating other candidates like Han Dong-hoon and Hong Jun-pyo in the second round. And it is a huge process indeed, I should say, because it is not easy. It is difficult competition. So when being urged by his party to quickly reconcile with Han Jong, I believe that he wasn't happy about it, and even he might feel that he himself is not being respected. Indeed, Mr. Kim didn't oppose to reconciliation. He has claimed that he will meet Han Jong after he won, but he's claiming that it shouldn't be that hurry. It should be fair, making the voters know he and Han Jong-soo's plan first and then decide instead of rushing and putting too much effort and attention on Han himself. This is somehow understandable. But for the People Power Party, they might think that they don't have much time. For example, for those promotion materials such as election posters or advertisement, it need to be prepared. It need to be printed in advance, and they need to know the final candidates as soon as possible. That's probably the reason they rushed this time, trying to complain and ask Kim Moon-soo to reconcile with Han Jong-soo as soon as possible. And later we saw that the party disqualified Mr. Kim and make Han Jong-soo join and registered as the new candidate of the Power Party. But more party members then chose Kim during the internal vote and making him be able to come back. This is more shocking and interesting more than like normal Korean dramas. And it will definitely make people think that this is already an insurrection, and now it happened again inside the ruling party, though failed eventually. This has led many people to believe that the ruling party is really focused solely on only on power struggles and without reflecting those serious issues of the past few months.
You mean the Conservative Party, which was the former ruling party,
right,
of course, right? Chloe, public polls for now show that the Liberal Party candidate, Lee Jae-myung, standing in the lead. How has the party, the Democratic Party perhaps, been seeking to maintain this momentum and to strengthen public support ahead of the June 3rd election, do you think?
Yeah, so first of all, to speak a bit about the recent polls, I took just one example of the Real Meta survey that was published on Sunday, and they're saying that Lee Jae-myung would gather 52.1% of the voters against Kim Moon-soo was at 31.1%. What's interesting to note is that Lee Jae-myung has been in the lead for all the polls, most of the polls at least, for quite some time now, even when there were no official names against him. The Polls Institute have been testing a lot of names against him, and since December he's been quite in the lead for quite a long time. So, you could think that it's kind of easy now for the Democratic Party, but I feel like they know that a campaign can be tricky and they have to work on it. Lee Jae-myung has to convince the more moderate voters, the conservative, moderate conservative voters. We've seen that in the videos that he's been making when he was making the primary election campaign, where he's been calling for more moderate voters, not the ones who are already quite to the Democratic side. He also has to, gather some progressists as well. People would be probably voting for the Democrats, or maybe not that much into his own character and in Jae-myung himself. So he has to be able to, gather on both sides to try to get as many people as possible. We've seen that, for example, with his, before the official campaign, he's been doing the listening tour. So he's been touring a lot of cities, actually, from the 1st of May to the 11th, so yesterday. He's been going to 51 cities and counties, especially in rural areas, also in conservative strongholds. So, more difficult audience, obviously, for the Democrats. And it's interesting to see that he has been putting the focus on the smaller cities, on the places where he would not go for the official campaign because they are kind of harder to go through because the campaign is always kind of short. And, it's been well received. This listening tour has been quite well received from what we've seen, from the medias, from the reports. People have been happy to see a candidate coming to rural areas and putting the focus on places that are usually not receiving that much attention during the campaign.
Right. And while the Liberal Party candidate sought to touch base with voters here in the country. His special advisor, Kim Jong, he was recently over in the US, Chien-Hao. For the sake of our viewers who may not be familiar with this character, could you tell us who Kim Jong is and why was he in the US and what's the relevance of that particular trip?
Mr. Kim had served as the Minister of Trade and the United Nations Ambassador of South Korea during President Roh Moo-hyung's period, and he's one of the main person helping President Roh sign the FTA, preparing signing the FTA with the United States. And later, he had become the president's special assistant of foreign affairs and national security during President Moon Jae-in's term. And this time, he visited, just like you mentioned, he visited the United States as candidate Lee Jae-myung's special advisor. And it is no surprise that Lee Jae-myung sent Mr. Kim to the United States because currently, like Lee himself is very likely to be elected as president, as we see now. As you can see, like during former President Yoon's term, South Korea had seeking a very tight cooperation with the United States and even tried to improve the relation with Japan. And many people are estimating that if it is Lee Jae-myung comes up, because before he had already shown a very friendly stance toward North Korea and China and a more stronger attitude toward Japan and the United States, South Korea's diplomacy will have a significant shift if he won the election next month. I think Mr. Lee himself has already known that there are indeed worries and even suspicious when talking about these diplomatic stance positions, and it probably triggers the United States too, and that's why he needs to explain what he want to do, what is the Lee Jae-myung camp want to do in the future dealing with the diplomatic plans, his diplomatic plans to the United States and to make Washington regime feel relieved and safe. And Mr. Kim has revealed that if Lee Jae-myung wins the election, South Korea will still choose to strengthen the ties and cooperations with the United States, and had emphasized that the importance of the trilateral cooperations between South Korea, Japan, and the United States. And when talking about Japan, Mr. Kim mentioned that even two countries didn't have a good relationship and it did have some problems, but cooperation is still necessary. Also, he mentioned that South Korea will stand on the same line with the United States to condemn on North Korea's missile test last week, meanwhile asking North Korea to maintain restraint. And speaking of the problem of tariff, Mr. Kim mentioned that it will take a longer time for South Korea government negotiating with the United States, indicating that the current caretaker government is suggesting that all of these kind of issues will have to wait until the new government takes office before the discussions of other solutions can begin, rather than being resolved before the presidential election.
Right, with the new government, of course, expected to take over on June 4th after the election on June 3rd. Chloe, what impact does a Conservative Party victory look to have on South Korea's foreign policy?
Yeah, so if we look at the pledges, like 10 pledges that the candidate Kim Moon-soo has been giving to the presidential election, he's not speaking that much about the foreign diplomacy, but he's speaking about 2 points that could be of interest. First of all, he said that it's important to get deterrence against North Korea, against the North Korean nuclear program, missile program. So this is kind of the stance that has already been the one of the Conservative Party, opposite to the progressive, like the Democratic Party, sorry. They choose to think that you have to have deterrence against North Korea, against the threat of North Korea. And in the same line is saying that they should strengthen the alliance with the United States. So two of the parts that he's speaking about was like permanent stationing of United States strategic assets in South Korea, and also to add a nuclear attack protection clause to the South Korea and US defense treaty. So this is close to the stance that was taken by Yoon Suk-yeol when he was president himself. He decided to get closer to the US to try to make sure that the deterrence was an ironclad commitment from the United States. There's no discussion about Japan in the pledges because, I mean, obviously foreign diplomacy is not the main point in the official campaign, but we can think that it might be because the rest of the position is still close to the Yoon Suk-yeol position. So I guess there would also be a need for a strong ally as well in the area. So Japan could still be the main ally for the Conservative Party if they were to get the presidential office. Because also, I mean, with Donald Trump, America's first policy, South Korea would need an ally here that could be a very strong and very liable ally to kind of balance the fact that the US might be sometimes a bit further away and will be going to other parts of the world rather than the Korean Peninsula.
Right. Chien-Hao, you mentioned tariffs earlier on, and staying with that, the most pressing issue perhaps for the incoming administration, regardless of political party, is Mr. Trump's tariffs. Now, Lee Jae-myung has shared his sentiments with regard to these tariffs. Could you tell us a bit more about his thoughts and what approach can we expect if the Liberal Party wins the election?
So I've just mentioned the candidate Lee Jae-myung has sent Mr. Kim Jong to the United States, explaining his stance on diplomatic issues. And even Mr. Lee himself has mentioned that South Korea should not rush for a trade deal with the United States. He also said that it should be fair. Comparing to other countries. Lee had accepted an interview last week with some South Korean economic YouTubers, and he once said that there is a high chance that the United States would end up isolating itself. And he said during the interview, and saying that the South Korean government and the enterprises should unite together to negotiate with the United States instead of negotiating separately. And many investments of South Korean companies, enterprises in the United States can also be used as the negotiating card. And furthermore, Lee had mentioned that if the United States pursue its dangerous policy, it will possibly lead to inflation and gave negative effect, hurting the credibility of the United States itself. Also, he said that the South Korea needs to cooperate with other neighbor countries such as Japan to deal with the United States tariff policy. It is very similar. Remember 2 weeks ago when I was here, I also mentioned that it will be nice if South Korea and Taiwan can work on negotiating with the United States on tariff issues. But I think if it's Taiwan, I don't think candidate Lee will be that active or willing to work together, since it's very sensitive when dealing with China.
I suppose time will tell us, then we'll see. Similarly, Chloe, what approach does South Korea look to take if the Conservative Party wins the election?
Yeah, so during the primary campaign, Kim Moon-soo said that he would immediately propose, if he were to be elected as a president, he would immediately propose a summit with Donald Trump for a package deal, that's what he was calling it, on economic and industrial cooperation. So there's a few, obviously, main domains where South Korea could have quite nice assets to propose, especially shipbuildings, semiconductors, AI, where there is strength in the country that they could offer for the US in exchange of nicer, more fair tariffs. He's been speaking about the fact that he wants to achieve a new growth and prosperity through 3 major innovations in capital, technology, and labor. So that would be the plan would be to put South Korea as one of the top 5 global exporters through bilateral trades as well. And, that's kind of going through what the current government is still doing. They are currently meeting up with the US officials to try and plan and make deals, but they have been saying that the Trade Ministry has been saying that there will be no deal before the next government, just as Chien-Hao has been explaining before. So, I mean, everything is for now on a break, on waiting for the next government to come into office for the 4th of June.
Right. Chien-Hao, this particular election and the campaign for the election comes amid weeks and weeks of much political uncertainty here in the country. That being said, What do you believe our voters here in South Korea hoping to hear from the presidential contenders this time around?
I think there will be two factors. One is the most important economy, since that we have experienced like the most severe inflation in these several years, and more stores you can see in Seoul and in other parts of the country are like collapsed or closed down. So, thinking about how to recover the economy will be the very important mission of the new government. But I don't think it's going to be very easy, because not only Korea but also every country is experiencing the same issue. And another problem is social justice, including like judicial stuffs. Many people are not believing or are not trusting the judicial system. And also, if you look at the scandals of the former First Lady Kim Moon-seo's scandal, like the problem of is like receiving the bags, and also the prosecutor was not really investigating on these. So people will think that it is unfair. So I think the coming government should solve these two important issues: social justice and economy. But both, I think, it still have a long way to go, and it's not going to be easy.
Right. And staying with this, Chloe, I'm going to extend the same question to you. What kind of pledges do you suppose our swing voters, whom you mentioned earlier, what kind of pledges would serve to better sway swing voters here in the country?
Yes, I would agree with Chien-Hao on the fact that economical issues are going to be the main thing. I would just add one thing that could be maybe a point that could attract some voters, which is the modification of the constitution. It's been discussed. It could have been linked to the vote. Some offered to link it with a referendum to the presidential vote. Obviously, it's not going to happen because it was too short of the time to be able to do at the same time presidential campaign and together with explaining to people the referendum, what could change for the constitution and make, a vote that could be enlightened vote. But it's something that, could be an interesting point for the voters to know what's the stance of all the candidates on this potential constitutional reform. I mean, if we look at the main parties, so Conservative and Democratic Party also, they have both been talking about this issue. So I feel like that could also be one of the main points that could attract attention from the voters who are not decided yet on who to vote for on this upcoming election. Right, the undecided voters then. All right, Chloe, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today.
Thank you.
And
Yang Chien-Hao, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right, well, that ends Monday's edition of Press Perspective. Thank you for watching, and be sure to join us again same time tomorrow.